Robin gets to stay behind because we're moving on to item number 14, the financial report for 6 months ended December 31st, 2015. Robin Bertagna, Finance Director.
Good evening. Tonight I'm going to be providing you with a fiscal update for the fiscal year 15-16, the first 6 months through December 31st, 2015. It's a fairly brief report because we're very early on in the fiscal year. This is a summary of the general fund budget versus actual at the highest level, including the beginning fund balance as of July 1st, 2015. The total revenues, total expenditures, and fund balance on a budget basis, and the actual results from operations for the first 6 months. The fund balance amount included here includes only the uncommitted Healthy Cities Reserve, not the city's Economic Stabilization Reserve Fund. The year-to-date amounts are on a cash basis and represent amounts received for revenue and expended for expenses as of December 31st. It doesn't include any accrual information. The original 15-16 budgeted expenses were $37.4 million. To that, we have added grant-funded appropriations of $852,000, so a significant amount of grants that we've received through December 31st. Prior year expenditure additions for purchase order commitments of $370,000 and negotiated contract increases in costs for $709,000 total to totally eliminate the furloughs and do all the things that we did with employee contract agreements. Total currently budgeted expenditures are just under $39.4 million. Since revenues are on a cash basis and our largest revenues are not received until February of each fiscal year, February and May, the general fund has a deficit as of December 31st. That shouldn't alarm you because that's fairly typical. It merely represents a cash flow issue, and the city is prepared to cover it each year with our pooled cash reserves. We will once again have a positive fund balance in the general fund by the end of the fiscal year. This slide shows you the top 4 revenues of the city's general fund, with the gold amounts being the percentage of budget received and the lighter blue amounts being the percentage of budget not yet received. Shows you that we have received nothing in property tax revenues, which is once again typical. We don't receive the first payment from Sutter County until February, with the second installment being in May. By the end of the fiscal year, though, finance projects that property tax revenues will be approximately $150,000 higher than what we have budgeted, because we budgeted for an increase of 4%, and our assessed values have gone up 6.3% between fiscal years. And the details of the changes in the assessed values were included in the written staff report provided to City Council, the breakdown between residential versus industrial, commercial, etc. This is the quarterly changes in sales tax on both a cash basis and an adjusted basis. I know I show this to council at least twice a year, every year, because our sales tax is our #1 revenue source for the city, and as such, we rely on it pretty heavily. You can see from looking at these percentage changes, it is fairly volatile from quarter to quarter compared to the same quarter of the previous fiscal year. It changes significantly, but the good news, most of these quarters that I'm showing you up here are positive. That wasn't always the case during the recession. The adjusted basis for the students that are here, the cash basis represents the amounts that we receive in cash. The adjusted basis are based upon percentages provided to us by our sales tax audit consultant to factor in any double payments, overpayments, or missed payments by our businesses in our community. Four more of our top general fund revenues, again showing how much we've received as a percentage of what has been budgeted. The motel surcharge revenues received exceed the 25% expected. I would only expect to have received 25% through December 31st because we don't receive the December 31st quarter until the end of January. Building permit revenues are about 78% of what we budgeted, significantly higher due to the increase in development activity. And I included in the written staff report to council that about a third of those revenues are due to solar construction within the city. In summary, as it relates to our revenues, Finance fully expects that by the end of the fiscal year, all of our revenues will be right on track with where we projected. I'm not seeing any major trends one way or the other where something's going to be significantly higher or significantly less than what we've budgeted. On the expenditure side, we've expended 46.6% of the amounts budgeted for salaries and benefits. The savings is below the 50% that we would expect due to vacancies that Human Resources is in the process of recruiting for. I was curious to see how the percentage compared to last fiscal year, so I looked at December 31st of last year, and last year we had expended 46.8, so 0.2% more than what we've expended this year as a percentage of our budget. And to me, that's an indication that at the end of the fiscal year, we will likely once again have a surplus, even though we started with a budget deficit. But I want to caution that that's one-time money, solely because we have vacant positions that we've budgeted that we're in the process of trying to fill. It's not money that we can use for ongoing expenses on a go-forward basis. 41% of the amount budgeted for operating expenses has been expended as of December 31st, and the total general fund expenditures are 44.7% of the amounts budgeted. Finance will receive each department's estimated total expenditures as part of their budget submission process for next year's budget. And at that point, I will tally up everything and give you a projected year-end savings figure once all of the budget submissions are done towards the end of April, mid-April, end of April timeframe. We'll have a better idea of how we anticipate ending the fiscal year. This is a slide that shows you the city's unfunded PERS liabilities. It shows the assets within both our safety and our miscellaneous plans, the liabilities that we owe according to CalPERS, and this is as of the June 30th, 2014 actuarial report that we received in November and December of 2015, showing that we have a net unfunded liability of $21.5 million on safety plans, $25.8 million for miscellaneous. When you add to that the $2.2 million that we still owed as of June 30th on our pension obligation bonds, that was the $49.4 million that Pat referred to earlier. From our CalPERS actuarial reports, I wanted to include this slide too, just so that everyone's aware that we are fully informed and knowledgeable that we do have this outstanding obligation. We monitor how much it is and look at it. We're not in a position to throw a bunch of money at it at this time to try to reduce it, but we're fully aware that we have this obligation to CalPERS. And with that, I'd like to move on to our two enterprise funds, the water utility and the wastewater utility. The water operating revenues are at 45.6% of budget. The reason they're close to the 50% halfway through the fiscal year is because of the seasonal nature of water billings in July, August, and September, when the consumption is in fact higher. In comparing this to what the projections were, it showed a decline of 19% by comparing the first 6 months of fiscal year 15-16 to 2 years ago, where we projected we would be for 15-16 to where we were 2 years ago. And we measure it to 2 years ago because that's the state's measurement that they ask us to look at. And this is attributable to the city's conservation efforts to reach the state mandated goals. Capital connection fee revenues are only at 9% of the amount budgeted. As I indicated in my written report, the percentage received is much lower than expected due to the $1.6 million that we have budgeted in Prop 84 waterline grant revenue connection fees that we anticipate being received prior to the end of the fiscal year. Operating expenditures are at 43% of the amount budgeted and are also less than budget expectations at this time during the fiscal year. In reviewing where the savings is occurring, it's in salaries and benefits because we had 3.5 vacant positions that are in the process of being filled. Heat and power have cost us less than what we've budgeted and expected, and equipment operations and maintenance were also less than expected through December 31st. Water purchases, however, exceeded expectations with 71% of the amount budgeted already expended. Debt service to date only includes the December 1st interest payment. Principal and interest are not due until June 1st, so that's why it looks slightly skewed on the debt service. We have some similar data on the wastewater. Revenues are at 48% of the amount budgeted, only slightly less. We don't have the seasonal fluctuations in wastewater as we do on the water side. Grant revenues are from the receipt of SRF grant funds. Capital connection fee revenues for the wastewater are at 46% of the amount budgeted, approximately half of what we would expect this point through the fiscal year because we don't have a large grant revenue receivable outstanding. Operating expenditures are at 37% of the amount budgeted and are therefore less than what we would expect. I looked to see where those differences came from and why they were less. We had 7.5 vacant positions within the wastewater utility function, had savings in heat and power, and facilities and operations and maintenance is under budget as well. This is our debt coverage calculation in order to meet our bond covenants, where I measure our available cash balance at a certain point in time, including the receivable from the Prop 84 water line connection that we're anticipating receiving. We've got the grant agreement in place. It's just a matter of cash flow timing, to the annual debt service from the connection fees that we pay from connection fee debt service revenues. And the ratio is measured in terms of years. So on the water side, we have just a little over a year of debt service set aside, cash available. And on the wastewater side, just under 2 years. So the water side shows that we have to be more concerned about running out of money sooner. And when we do, we track everything separately within the city's accounting system. We will keep track of it and it'll run deficit, and we'll continue to pay our debt service until such time as development increases. And we use a pooled cash function for each of the systems. So the cash from operations and capital projects that we have set aside to build projects with will help keep the enterprise system whole as an entire system, even if the cash drops deficit for the particular connection fee fund. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Questions of Robin?
There's really no question, but just kind of an observance. You said there were, 7.5 positions on the wastewater that were vacant, correct?
That's correct.
Just recently, I think we have set it up to where an outside firm will be filling 2 of those positions for a year. Is that not correct? Where we voted on that from an outside firm to help us out?
You're correct. At the most recent meeting, you did take that action. Additionally, I believe we have one individual tech who's going to be coming back to the city. So one position, the good news of the 2 that were vacant, one will be filled, but you're correct, we'll supplement with those consulting services.
With the education that's needed now for wastewater systems and things, and the licenses, that is definitely a bit of a smelly career, but it is a solid one that somebody needs to be looking at for the future, is something like that, because it is an open career right now throughout the state of California. It's hard to find people for that. Thank you.
Robin, thank you very much for the presentation. Certainly keeps the council and the citizens informed as to where we stand as a city and financially where we stand. So thank you once again.
You're welcome.
And we will note and follow your report. Thank you.
Thank you.